Hello, and welcome to this community information meeting for the Lynn Valley Road Active Transportation Improvement Project. My name is Kirsty Dick, and I'll be your technical facilitator for today's session. Some participants are still joining us, so we will give them a minute or two to get settled, and then we'll begin the session. We appreciate your patience. We still have some people filing in, so we'll just give them another few seconds, and then we'll begin. In the interest of time, I think we'll get going. It is 7:02 and we have a limited time to get through a lot of information. So hello everyone and welcome to the Community Information Meeting for the Lynn Valley Road Active Transportation Improvement Project. My name is Kirsty Dick and I'm the technical facilitator for today's webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this session and to learn more about this project. So speaking on behalf of the project team, it is our pleasure to be here to provide you with information about the project, answer your questions, and hear your comments. I'll turn things over to staff from the District of North Vancouver in a moment, but first I'll provide information about the format that we'll be using today. You're likely familiar with the Zoom platform and its functions, but for those who are less familiar, I'll do a quick tutorial and refresher of the platform controls. And if you are viewing the presentation, there is an image of the control bar on the screen now. For audio, due to the number of participants this evening and for everyone's convenience, you're currently in listen-only mode and will remain that way for the duration of the session. We have quite a lot of people signed up tonight. If you're calling in by phone only, that is, you don't have access to a device that has the Zoom app, you will only be able to listen to the presentation. If you do have questions you'd like to ask the project staff, please send them by email to honormands@dnv.org. That's HONORMANDS@dnv.org. And you will also find that e-address in your confirmation email. We'll also share it at the end of the presentation, and staff would be happy to respond to the question following this session if your question does not get answered. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please use the chat tool and we will do our best to troubleshoot. We ask that you use the chat only for technical issues. For the question and answer session, we ask that people please submit their questions to the project team using the Q&A feature. So you'll see that near the middle, just to the right of on the control bar. You can submit them at any time during the session and we will address them in the order that they are received. Finally, I want to note that this session is being recorded for posting to the project website, and comments and questions will be documented as part of the engagement process. So to start off, I'd like to introduce the district project team members who are in attendance this evening. We have Erin Moxon, Manager of Project Delivery, who will be presenting the project information. And we also have Sharzad Honarmand, Project Manager, who will be available to answer questions during the discussion. Before I hand things over to Erin, I would like to say a welcome to Councillor Jordan Back, who is here today and has a few words to say before we get started. Councillor, back over to you.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. I just wanted to take a moment just to thank everyone for taking the time out of your evening, what is a very beautiful and very warm summer evening. I'm sure there's lots of other activities you'd rather be doing, but I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight to take part in this community information meeting to hear more about the plans for the Lynn Valley Road Active Transportation Project. And I just want to say that, well, I'm encouraged about all of the many benefits that this project will provide residents and visitors of our community, creating a safer experience for all users along Lynn Valley Road. I can also appreciate that there are real concerns as well. And I've spoken with a number of residents and businesses over the last few weeks about some of those concerns. And so that's why I'm here tonight. It's important to note that this is a community information meeting, which is not the type of meeting that mayor and members of council are required to attend, although we can. All of council will receive a summary of what is discussed here tonight. I just thought it was important for me to be here to listen and hear directly from the community. So this project does still have a ways to go. And as we consider all of the various design options, I want to hear from you. And that's exactly why I'm here tonight. I'm here just to listen. And with that, I'll turn it back to Aaron and Sharzad. But thank you again very much for attending tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Now I will pass the mic over to Aaron Moxon, who will bring in the presentation. Aaron, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, and welcome everybody who's joined us online. Thank you for taking part in this meeting this evening and for joining us. I'm going to be reading some notes off to the side, so you'll probably see more of the side of my face than the front. I apologize for that. Tonight, I'll briefly discuss the overall project background and timeline and spend some time talking about how the Lynn Valley Road Active Transportation Project, which extends all the way from Mountain Highway through to Dempsey Road, how it came to be and how it fits into the broader transportation objectives of the District of North Vancouver. I'll then describe the improvements that will begin construction this fall, which is the section from Mountain Highway to Peters Road, and provide you a timeline on when you can expect to see these changes on Lynn Valley Road. So there's a number of, I want to take some time to explain how this project came to be and talk a little bit about the guiding documents that really create a foundation for this project. So guided by our official community plan, or OCP, our transportation plan, our bicycle master plan, we are making sound decisions about new cycling infrastructure spending that will enable, over time, a complete district-wide cycling network for people of all ages and abilities. By reducing the number of trips made by car, we can help mitigate the impacts of climate change, lessen traffic congestion, and nurture healthier communities by supporting active modes of transportation. So why Lynn Valley Road? Lynn Valley Road is a major arterial road, a transit route, a pedestrian corridor, and a designated cycling route, yet it doesn't have existing dedicated cycling lanes. From Mountain Highway to Dempsey, it is identified as a priority cycling route which connects the Lynn Valley Town Centre to regional and local parks, and also links our local residents to the wider community. This project formalizes the existing cycling route. It improves crossings and improves safety for cyclists, for pedestrians, and for other road users. In September 2020, the district held a district-wide cycling engagement survey. Through this online survey, we sought to find out how residents currently use bike lanes in the district, what types of bike lanes they prefer, and how we can make cycling feel safer for everyone. Additionally, we sought to understand how residents think bike lanes should be built in the district. More than 1,600 residents responded, and they indicated the top reasons people do not cycle in the district is because of safety concerns, incomplete connections, and cycling route locations. The results of this survey are posted on our website at dnv.org/bike lanes. And you'll also find that link on the project website as well, which we'll be posting at a couple of places through this presentation. So the purpose of this project is to improve comfort and convenience for all road users. It's about moving people, whether you're walking, driving, cycling, or taking transit. For example, children walking to school, visitors accessing our local parks, and residents commuting, shopping, or visiting friends. The Lynn Valley Active Transportation Project will complete the cycling and sidewalk network along Lynn Valley Road, eliminating existing gaps and improving the comfort, visibility, and accessibility of pedestrians and cyclists at specific intersections and at bus stops. This project started taking shape with the closure of Lynn Headwaters Road due to road failures back in 2017. In anticipation of significant parking challenges that following summer, the district partnered with Metro Vancouver to complete the Lynn Headwaters Access Plan, which considered parking availability and challenges and alternate means to access Lynn Headwaters Park. Providing comfortable, convenient alternatives to travel by car to get to these local parks was identified as one way to help mitigate parking demand and traffic congestion that was impacting our local neighborhoods. Next slide, please. The project was originally planned for 2019. However, it was postponed to incorporate a more comprehensive approach to active transportation that includes improvements to walking, cycling, driving, and transit infrastructure. The results of the fall 2020 district-wide cycling engagement survey and the November 2020 council workshop were also considered before finalizing the design. The project has been split into 2 phases for ease of delivery. The first phase is between Mountain Highway and Peters Road, shown in green, and the second phase is between Peters Road and Dempsey Road in red. Construction of the Mountain Highway to Peters Road section is expected to begin this fall and will include concrete works and electrical work, with line marking and parking modifications occurring next spring in early 2022. For the Peters Road to Dempsey section, we are still in the very early stages of planning, but there will be lots of opportunity for public input at a later date. We are planning to go out to the community as early as this fall to discuss that second phase from Peters Road to Dempsey Road, and plan to begin design middle of next year with construction planned in 2023. The scope of this section will focus on dedicated facilities for people walking, wheeling, and cycling. Let's now focus on the Mountain Highway to Peters Road section in the following slides. The overall project goals for this section are to improve the safety of all road users, whether you walk, cycle, drive, or take transit. To that end, we are making the following improvements to this important corridor. New painted cycling lanes on both sides of Lynn Valley Road, installing concrete curb bulges and a new traffic signal at Allen Road, making accessibility and comfort improvements at 5 transit stops within the corridor, adding 2 parking pockets on Lynn Valley Road to create space for a total of 10 parked vehicles, and adding short-term loading zones for 2 cars each on most side streets. Now let's take a closer look at these improvements on the following slides. This is a rendering of Lynn Valley Road at Allen Road looking west. It shows the new cycling lanes on both sides of Lynn Valley Road, which are separated from traffic by a painted buffer and by concrete barriers that will be placed at key locations to provide physical separation and remind corridor users that people are in the cycling lanes. This rendering also shows the new full traffic signal that's in all 4 directions at Allen Road that will improve the safety of all modes of transportation using this busy intersection. Sorry, I just have to catch up here. There we go. The cycling lanes through the Allen Road intersection will be highlighted using green paint to alert road users of the presence of cyclists. 5 transit stops along the corridor will be upgraded to improve comfort and accessibility with the addition of benches and tactile pads, which aid navigation. This next slide is a more generic rendering that again includes the separated cycling lanes on either side of Lynn Valley Road, but this shows a mid-block view. Parking pockets will be installed at 2 feasible locations along Lynn Valley Road, one near Upton Road and one across from Frederick Road, Each pocket provides space for 5 parked vehicles. Finally, and what's not shown on this rendering are the loading zones on most of the side streets. Each zone includes 2 parking spaces on each of the side streets and is meant to provide short-term parking for quick turnaround activities such as deliveries, taxis, Uber drivers, FedEx, or passenger pickup and drop off. And they can be used in addition, of course, to driveway access. Both the parking pockets and the loading zones have been included because of lessons learned on similar projects, and the district will monitor these loading zones and make adjustments as needed. There will be 1 commercial loading zone that will also be installed for the Maple Leaf Garden Center for their delivery trucks specifically. So this year, likely starting in early fall, we'll complete the intersection improvements and concrete work, including the parking pockets. Next spring, we'll return to install the bike lanes with final road markings and intermittent concrete barriers. At that point, road space currently used for on-street parking will be reallocated to cycling lanes. That's the end of our presentation. If you haven't already, please take a look at our project webpage, which is at dnv.org/Lynn-Valley-Road, or RD-AT for active transportation, where we have some project details, background information, links to a lot of those guiding documents that we talked about earlier, as well as news and updates, where we'll post regular updates once construction starts in the next few months. If you'd like to talk to a project team member, here is Shahrzad's contact information. Several of you may have already met her when she was out in your neighborhood a few weeks ago delivering project notification letters to residents. She'll also be answering questions here tonight.
Thank you, Erin. We'll now open the floor to questions, and we will begin with questions that were submitted during the presentation. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to use the Q&A window to submit any questions you may have. We'll answer as many questions as we can within the allotted time this evening in the order they have been received. And I'd like to note that in the interest of time, we may combine similar questions. So we do have a question that came in during the presentation. The question is, Allen Road, you say that the Allen Road intersection is busy. It really is not busy, and there is no need for a traffic signal. There are already far too many traffic signals in Lynn Valley. Why not use a mini roundabout, which would be free flowing? Is this a question for you, Erin, or is this for Shahrzad?
Sure. Why don't I take that? So the decision to install a full traffic signal is typically based on a warrant analysis. And it's a criteria-based procedure, and it's something that's outlined by standard design guidelines called the Transportation Association of Canada, or TAC manual. And what it looks at is the peak driving volumes, so peak hours, pedestrian volumes, school crossings, other operational issues, intersections, configurations, those types of things. So really this new signal will help all users at this intersection. And you also brought up in your question about traffic circles. They really do take quite a lot of space. And so we are somewhat restricted in how much available space we have and what property we have. So typically we find that traffic circles do involve property acquisition, which can complicate matters.
Okay, thanks, Erin. We have a related question. It says, why a stoplight and not a stop sign at Allen Road?
Yeah, I think really that goes back to the same answer. It's really this traffic warrant that we do, where we look at traffic volumes, pedestrian volumes, the number of people crossing. And really, when you go from a stop sign to a signal, it's because the volumes have been reached. So in this case, the volumes were reached to trigger a signal.
Hey, we have a question about parking pockets. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this one. We may need to get back to folks, but the parking pockets are concerning, especially because one will be in a sensitive riparian zone near Upton Road. How do you propose to mitigate this properly?
Sharzad, maybe if you know the answer right now, otherwise we can maybe come back to that.
Sure, I can briefly touch on that, and if that didn't answer the question, maybe we can get back to them with more detailed explanation. Basically, the location that was chosen for the west side of Upton Road, basically we're not going to affect the riparian zone. The existing face that is there is going to stay. The culvert head wall is all going to stay. All we're doing, basically, we're shifting the existing sidewalk and the proposed cycle lane closer to the existing fence. And basically that's all we're doing. We're not affecting any of the riparian zone, or we're not relocating the fence or the head wall. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you, Sharzad. Our next question is about Draycott Road. It says Draycott Road is shown on the map, however, it is not named. Is there a parking zone planned for the cul-de-sac?
So Sharzad, do you want to answer?
Of course. There will be no loading zone for Draycott Road. And one of the reasons is because due to a high volume of parking usage on that road. So there will be no loading zone.
Okay, thank you. We have a question about the volume of bike use on the bike lane on 29th. We don't have that information for this particular session. So we will pass this on and we'll see if we can get you an answer after the session. We have another question about Lynn Valley Road. I understand that there will be a trial of one-way traffic above Lynn Valley Road. When will this happen, and can you explain what the goal is?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. That relates to the second phase of this project. So from Peters Road through to Dempsey. And we're, like I said, we're still in the very early planning stages of that project. We don't necessarily know details yet. And what we're thinking is to have some form of pilot where we would have for 3 to 4 weeks a one-way section of Lynn Valley Road. And also, I guess, a one-way section on Dempsey from Lynn Valley Road to Underwood that would allow us to test some different concepts and ideas. And that would allow people to test it out, try it, and provide their feedback. It wouldn't be anything permanent. It would be with temporary materials. At this point, we don't know a lot of details, though, so that would be part of our engagement process as we move forward with phase 2. So we can't really provide much now. That's what we're thinking, but there will definitely be more information shared with the public and definitely more opportunity for input with the second phase of the project.
Okay, thanks, Erin. We have a question. It's about concerns about traffic lights on Mountain Highway, pushing traffic to other places. It's not related necessarily to this project, but what steps are you taking to assess people using these roads to avoid Lynn Valley and Mountain Highway traffic lights? This is in relation to lights on Allen, making it easier to have cars from Upper Lynn Valley cut through on Allen, Ross Hoskins, and Arbor Lynn. Is that something that is pertinent to this project, or we could get back to them later?
Yeah, I think it would probably be best for us to get back to them.
Okay. Someone has a question about how this will tie in with the major project at 1630 Lynn Valley Road at the Legion, in particular accommodation for 96 apartments.
I'm going to have to defer to Sharzad. I don't know about that. Or is that something we would have to get back to this person as well?
I know we are aware of it, and I understand that they are at the very early stages of that development. But with respect to any more details, we need to get back to them on that.
Okay, thank you. We have someone who's concerned that 10 parking spots in the parking pods will not be sufficient. Do you have some information you can provide about that?
Yeah, Sharzad, I think that goes towards the parking occupancy study. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, we actually did like a study for the last 3 years, like 2018, 2019, and 2021, actually. Sorry, 2018, 2019, and 2021. We didn't do anything for 2020. And what we found is that on the north side of Lynn Valley Road, the on-street parking usage, the average on-street parking usage is about 29% for all those years. And also on the south side is actually around 29% as well. So the on-street parking usage for this phase of the project, which is from Mountain Highway to Peters Road, is actually very low, on a very low side. So considering that, and also by providing two parking pockets at two feasible locations, as well as providing loading zones for side street, we believe that that would be sufficient parking spots.
Thanks, Shahzad. This is related to parking as well. Our next question. It's about the loading zones. So they suggest, instead of reserving 2 parking spots and making a time frame of 30 minutes taking up parking for residents, they suggest that keeping the side streets available for parking if people need it might be a better suggestion. Do you have some background about the thinking behind the loading zones that you can share?
Well, I think the intent of the short-term loading zones really are to provide, to address the needs of very short-term usage, quick turnarounds, like we mentioned, like Uber, FedEx, those types of quick stop and go. And quite frankly, we will be monitoring them to see how they perform, see if they're utilized. If they're not utilized, we might not need them. So possibly we could remove them, or if they are being used, or and there's high demand, we could possibly make them wider. So this is just, as we mentioned, it's a lesson learned from other projects in the district. We'll see how they work, and if they're successful, great. If they're not, we can look at modifying them.
Great, thanks, Erin. We have another question about parking pods. This one is related to the one before. It's about parking pod on Upton Road. The question is, why is this feasible? They have concerns about the creek being right there and crossing under the road, and preserving fish and trees and protecting those things. What if there are other parts of the street that would not cause issues? Can the parking pod be moved? So that's the question about feasibility about the parking pods.
Can I answer that? Yes.
Yeah, Shahzad, I think that's fine.
Definitely, like the project team, like we're definitely open to different ideas. We think that we have actually exhausted all different locations by considering, the spacing of the driveways, the pole locations, bus stops, and also like in order to make sure that we have enough space for at least about 5 different parking spots. So the only 2 feasible locations were the one across from Frederick Road and the one west of Upton Road that we could accommodate for 5 stalls. And there are locations that we could accommodate maybe like 1 or 2, but in terms of like constructing a parking pocket, it would be very costly to do it just for 2 car space.
Thanks, Shahzad. Our next question is about communication with residents of Walters Place on Draycott. The question is that it was indicated that Draycott would be made to be a right in, right out. This isn't indicated on the plans made available on the website or those that were circulated. This respondent is concerned that this would be an impact to residents and is concerned about communicating this. Do you have some comments about that?
Yeah, so we're still evaluating that issue. We know that there are challenges at Draycott, particularly at peak periods when traffic volume is heavy to make movements in and out of Draycott. So we're not going to be doing anything there this year. We're still evaluating it, and we will, before any changes are made, we will come and speak with you folks directly and have a bit more of a conversation about what we're planning there. So not to worry at this point, we're not going to be putting anything in this fall that will modify your movements in and out of Draycott.
Thanks, Erin. Our next question is, will any of these improvements reduce the vehicle speed on Lynn Road?
Yeah, it's a good question. It will be interesting to see. It's interesting, by removing parking along Lynn Valley Road, it opens up sight distances, it makes it safer. In terms of speed, we don't see that speeds increasing. What we see is that the flow of traffic will be better maintained because you won't there won't be friction, we call it, by drivers having to wait for other drivers to make parking movements, either coming in or out of parking stalls. We are also putting curb bulges at certain intersections that also kind of give the appearance of narrowing the road to slow traffic. We aren't actually narrowing the travel lane at all, but no, we don't foresee speeds increasing, nor do we foresee them decreasing.
And I'm just going to add to what my manager, Erin, said. Basically, by reallocating the vehicle parking, the vehicle on-street parking to cycling lane, it would actually help define the driving space better. And having that painted buffer width that would separate the cyclist from the traveling car, it would give that perception of the fact that the road is narrower than it used to be. So people, well, obviously drivers would automatically slow down. So that's it.
Thank you. Our next, we have a comment next, and it's a concern about delivery trucks being able to deliver directly to residents, and I believe they're referring to using the street parking to be able to do that. Do you have a comment or anything to speak to that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different options for deliveries. People always, most people have driveways, so those would still be presumably accessible to deliveries. We have the parking pockets that we're installing as well as the loading zones on side streets. So in some cases, there may be a situation where FedEx may need to walk a parcel, a couple of houses in, one way or the other. But we don't foresee there being any significant issues.
Okay, thanks. Our next question is, when will you allow citizens to view final designs for the phase 1 concrete work before they go to tender? This respondent believes there are significant implications for everyone along Lynn Valley Road, and especially regarding the parking pockets.
That's a good question, Sharzad.
Okay. Well, I'm always happy to meet the resident on site and show them the draft copy of the design drawings that I have. But we normally do not share the design drawings unless we actually go to tender, and then you can actually go to BC bid and take a look at the design drawings. But normally we do not share the design drawings, and hence the reason we're having virtual meetings like this to let residents know what's coming up.
Well, what we can do and what we usually do is provide simplified, because our design drawings are I don't know, engineering-y and technical, I suppose. So what we can do if there's enough interest is we can post something on the project web page that's a little bit more accessible to folks as well, if there's an interest. But I would suggest if you have a specific interest, Sharzad's email is still up. You're welcome to reach out to her and she can show you more details if you're inclined.
Okay, we have a question about parking pockets. Will they be time restricted to our parking or 4-hour parking, for example?
Should I go? Should I answer?
Yes, Shazad, that's great. Okay. You could answer that question. Thank you.
Okay. So for each parking pocket, we're providing about 5 spots. And out of those 5 spots, 2 of them will be considered as a short-term loading zone for 30 minutes. And the other 3 will remain unrestricted. So there's no time limit for the other 3.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is about a memorial on Lynn Valley Road. It's on the fence across from Maple Leaf Gardens. This respondent is letting us know. For the Kelowna Residential School. The respondent would like to know if the fence will remain and if the memorial will stay up during construction If not, they'd like to arrange to move it if it can't stay up.
I can answer that question. No, we're not. There is no plan to touch the memorial or relocate it to any other location. We're not going to touch it. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. We have another question about the one-way proposal. This respondent says, I was told that the pilot would start in August. Is this not the case?
Correct. Yeah. We were looking at possibly doing it this fall. There's a number of other, well, first of all, we have the phase one of this project that may be under construction. So that might affect travel patterns in the area. We also have the Dempsey culvert work going on Dempsey. So we didn't want to do the pilot this fall. So what we're doing is we're just regrouping and reassessing when we want to do that. Like I said, we have a broad timeline. We have time to speak with the community a little bit more before we get into the design phase, which we're not planning on doing until mid next year. So we have time. So we'll be letting folks know, but no, it's not happening this August, September.
Okay, we have a couple of questions on the one-way traffic. I'm going to combine them for the sake of time. This person, it doesn't understand why considering making Upper Lynn one-way is being considered, and so would like some information about that. Also, a follow-up question, if you think that this is needed to continue the pathway, should that be tested first?
Shahzad, do you want to try that one?
Sorry, which one? Sorry, I missed, like, I was getting cut out. Could you please repeat the question?
Oh, sure,
again?
yes. The question is about one way. So this person would like to understand why DNV is considering making the Upper Lynn Valley Road one way. So why it's being considered. And then the follow-up question is, if it's needed to continue the pathway, should that not be tested first?
Okay, well, in terms of like making the Lynn Valley for phase 2 one way, that would be one of the, I guess, like 3 options or 4 options that our transportation department is considering. And the reason that they wanted to test the pilot is because that would be like a new option that they wanted to see to actually like collect the data and get back to residents in terms of the changes, I guess. But again, like I think like we need to get, that's a very good question. But I think like I need to follow with our transportation department and get back to them on that.
It's still in the very early stages.
Yes.
But suffice to say that it's considered as one of the options that our transportation group is looking at. And the whole point of the pilot is to just be a temporary 3 to 4 week test of that one option. It would be something new, and that's why it would be important to test it so we could get feedback from the community, from users to see how they would like it. But there would be more coming on that. Once we have a better sense of when it would be happening, we can let folks know.
Great, thank you. We have another question about development. We had one previously about how these sort of projects are integrated. So maybe we can, you may have answered this before, but we have a second question. So maybe we can talk a little bit about how projects like this are, if development applications are taken into consideration with them, how do you integrate projects like that?
I would say that unfortunately, I need to get back to them on that with the resident.
I think, on a very general level, I think what we say is that, we have our active transportation routes, our network, and we're obviously trying to expand and fill in the gaps. And so if we have developments that are on these active transportation routes, there's consideration on how that development would be constructed and what offsite, when we say offsite, like what does their frontage look like, their sidewalks, cycling lanes, those types of facilities for the public. So we need to incorporate those when we're considering development.
Great, thank you. We have a question about the questions that we haven't been able to answer this evening, and we will follow up with people directly, or you can always feel free to email Sharzad, the email address on the currently on the screen with those questions, and we'll be sure to follow up with you on those. We have a question about the implementation of the loading zones in front of residential homes with 30-minute time limits. Will that stop the ability of owners to park in front of their own homes?
I can answer that question. No, it would not stop the ability of the owners to park in front of their own homes. They can park there, but it would be only for 30 minutes, as those locations are considered to be for loading zones.
Okay, thank you, Sharzad.
Yeah.
Our next question is, do you have a slide that you can show the proposed changes at the Draycott Road, Lynn Valley Road area? Is that part of this project or the next phase, Erin?
That was back to the access question at Draycott Road. So at this point, we're still assessing what that's going to look like. We do need to take a bit more time to consider what we're planning on doing there, and then we'd come to the community and show you what our proposal is. So at this point, I don't know that it's worth, well, for one thing, we don't have anything here right now tonight. But I think what we can do is, once we've got something that we can show, particularly the residents that access Draycott, we can show folks something and we can start that discussion with them.
Great. Our next question is also related. It's about whether detailed plans are available, as the website and the mail out don't have too many details. So as it's related, I think perhaps we can encourage people to get in touch with Sharzad to let them know they're interested in seeing more detailed plans. So if those were your questions, we encourage you to email directly and the project team will follow up with you.
Yeah, and maybe, Kirsty, I can add one thing to that question, is that we're, as part of this project, we're really not removing like the existing curb or the sidewalk for phase one. And for phase one, I mean like from Mountain Highway to Peters Road. The only changes that we're doing to the sidewalk would be where the parking pocket locations are, where we have to actually shift and meander the sidewalk and the cycle lane a little bit to the side. And also at the Allen Road intersection to create like those curb bulges. Other than that, we're not changing the we're not removing the existing sidewalk or the curb.
Great. This one is also related. So it's about details and being able to see detailed plans. This person in particular is concerned about, and I think this relates to what you just said, Sharzad, will my sidewalk be moved? What about my plants, my fence, etc.? When the details when are the details to be released, and will we have an opportunity to comment before finalization of the plans?
Yeah, basically the same answer.
Yeah,
and they can definitely get in touch with myself too.
Sure. And sorry, go ahead, Erin.
The other thing I think we can do is, I think we can come up with a better graphic that we can post on the project website. If you give us a couple of weeks, we'll create something and put it up so you have a better idea of where these two parking pockets are, because you're right, it's quite vague right now. And the graphic that we had in the information letter doesn't give you a very good idea of where those two parking pockets are. So we'll see if we can get something else up onto the project website that gives you a bit more detail.
Okay. We have a traffic question. It's difficult to turn left from Draycott Road onto Lynn. I understand that the plan will have right turns only. This might lead to U-turns and left turns so that cars can get redirected. As this might be a safety issue, especially around the school, might there be other solutions? For example, no right turns on red lights from Mountain onto Lynn Road would allow safer left turns.
Yeah, a lot of those concerns we're thinking about as well. And that's why we're not going to implement anything this fall, because we need to make sure that anything we do, there aren't unintended consequences to them.
We did have a question about the number of people attending the webinar. We can confirm that we had more than 70 people register for this webinar. Our next question is about the traffic does not respect the 40-kilometer sections now. Why would they do otherwise with this change?
I can answer that question. I think I kind of like answered previously. It was a different question, but basically by having these painted cycle lanes and having like their buffer and having the key barriers, the precast concrete barriers in key locations, it will create that visual narrowing of the road, and people like the drivers would automatically slow down a little bit.
Okay, great. We have a question about the commercial property at Lynn Valley and Allen, the RBC Bank. They're asking, access to this establishment is a serious traffic hazard. How is the stoplight going to address this?
That's a very good question. And I need to follow up with our transportation department and get back to them on that. However, the access coming from the Royal Bank, I think it is going to be actually right out only. Well, there won't be any medians, any concrete medians blocking that, but the access, there would be a sign saying that right out only. It's just because of its close proximity to the Allen Road intersection.
Our next question is a follow-up to the question about the 29th Avenue bike lane. This person was asking that question related to need. So that was, thank you for clarifying. It relates to the need for this project. How do we know that this investment is warranted? Also, does the District of North Van community want and need way more prominently than the needs of visitors, say to parks and things like that?
Well, I think it all goes back to the slide that we had near the beginning of the presentation, where we talk about all the guiding principles and the guiding documents and the foundation for this particular project. It goes all the way back to our official community plan, our transportation plan, our bicycle master plan, and which also has priority cycling routes, and this was identified as a priority cycling route. It's critical that we need to build out our cycling routes so that we have a backbone, a cycling network that will allow folks to use this as a viable alternate mode of transportation. So, you know, if you're looking for higher level reasonings for this project, it ends up being quite a long discussion. So I would suggest if you do want to have a longer discussion about that, please reach out to Sharzad and we can facilitate that for you, either talking with our transportation planner or Sharzad or myself.
Okay, great, thanks, Erin. Our next question is about, again, about stoplight versus stop sign. Have you done a study to see if a stop sign or a stop light would be more effective? This person observes that a light would allow for speed to continue, but a stop sign seems to make more sense to control speed. Do you have some information you can share about that?
I think it goes back to the volumes at that intersection and the warrant, the traffic warrant, because at some point when your volumes get high enough, a traffic signal is a safer installation than a four-way stop. We do have accident data from that intersection that helps inform that assessment as well.
And just to add to what my manager Erin mentioned, other than the warrant analysis, basically when we do the analysis, it actually considers the peak driving volumes, pedestrian volumes, school crossing, operational issues, and also considers the intersection configuration, which in this case is not at a 90-degree angle, it's basically a little bit skewed. So that analysis considers all these elements too. That's it.
Great, thank you. Let me see. There's a question about information, community needing information, but I'm not sure in particular what information that is related to. So if that's your question, perhaps you can provide some more information. It just says this information. So happy to ask that if we have a bit more. We have quite a detailed question about cyclists turning and I wonder if this is your question, if you could share it via email to the project team. In the interest of time, we only just have 10 minutes left and we still have quite a few questions to get through. So if you wouldn't mind sharing it, your question with us via email, we'd be happy to follow up with you after the session. I think that it might take all the remainder of our time. So I see their next question is about interest in detailed plans again. So we have that again. Will they be placed in the detailed plans section of the DMV active transportation page?
They will go to, so if, oh, well, there, we've got the link to the specific project webpage right here on the slide. So if you go to dnv.org/Lynn Valley Road AT, I believe there's a couple of different tabs. I'm just going off of memory here. But we will put it under the details and specifications, I think it is. So we can put it under one of those tabs. It sounds like there's enough interest to get some more specific information out. So we'll work on doing that and we'll post it in the next couple of weeks on the website. Pardon me, web page. This web page here that's on the slide.
We have a question about crosswalks at Lynn Valley and Hoskins roads. I believe that's phase 2 though, Erin, is that correct? Yeah, so that is still, yeah, so there will be lots of opportunity to provide input and find out more information. But Erin, do you just want to give a little short note about phase 2?
I guess like we were suggesting, we're still in the very, very early stages. It sounds like they're asking about crossings. We will be looking at crossing. How to cross Lynn Valley Road is also an important safety feature for the project, particularly for pedestrians. So we will be looking at crossings as part of phase 2.
Okay, great, thank you. Making a main feeder road such as Lynn Valley one-way, this person also is concerned about that. Maintaining parking for visitors is not taking into account residents as a priority. So that's more of a comment than a question. We also have one about some of the studies and data on which some of this is based were conducted quite some time ago. How are they still valid and representative of current conditions?
Okay, I can answer that question. If they're referring to the on-street parking use study that was done by our transportation department, I can say that it was done back in June 2018, August 2019, and also May 2021. So I'm assuming the one that was done, few months ago this year is pretty much an accurate capture of how everything will look like. So yeah.
Okay. We had a question about parking permits, but I'm not sure if that is something that you're able to answer. It's about parking restrictions happening in Lynn Valley and parking permits for residents. Is that something that you could answer, or
that would be like our transportation department? They need to send a request to engineering@dnv.org and with attention to transportation.
Okay, perfect. And if your question was the one about parking permits, send it to engineering or send it to the email on the screen and we'll forward it.
Yeah.
So this is another question about the RBC parking lot. They want to confirm that that parking lot will be looked at as part of the Draycott Road mini project.
I would say there is a potential for that for sure. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have another question about turning. So similar to your plan to incorporate right turn only on many intersections, could restricting to only right turns at Lynn Valley and Allen actually achieve the same thing as a stoplight?
Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm really following that question, but all I can say as part of the full traffic signal that we're doing at Allen Road, there will be no right turn when it's red, actually, no right turn on red.
And that's an additional safety feature for
Yes,
cyclists.
for cyclists, correct.
Okay, we have a question about it's about the name active transportation. I wonder if we could just take a little moment to talk about what active transportation means. This person is asking, it isn't called a bicycle project, it's specifically called active transportation. So can you speak to that a little bit? Maybe that's for you, Erin.
Yeah, I think, well, what that means is it's active transportation implies all modes of getting around, obviously driving, but cycling, walking, transit, scootering, rollerblading, whatever mode you use to get around, that's what active transportation implies. And active transportation is important because as we struggle with traffic congestion, with greenhouse gas emissions, we need to find alternate ways for people to get around that isn't in a single occupant vehicle or driving in a car. So that's why active transportation is a little bit of a key term these days that you're starting to hear more and more, because it really is becoming front and center as we're grappling with these large issues like climate change and traffic congestion.
Thanks, Erin. We just have a few minutes left here. Also, just wanted to point out too that the cycle survey, the DNV cycle survey, is available at dnv.org/bike lanes if people are more interested in learning about the bike lanes and active transportation generally. We have a question about what will happen at the existing crosswalk light at Allen and Lynn Valley.
That special crosswalk will actually going to be dismantled because it's going to be replaced with a full traffic signal at Allen Road intersection.
We have a follow-up to the parking permits. Shahrzad, could you share that email again about where to address questions about parking permits for residents?
Of course, the email is engineer, ENGINEER @dnv.org. So it is engineer@dnv.org with attention to transportation.
Thank you. We are very limited on time, so I will need to focus on the questions that are pertinent to this project today. Says, are there updated surveys available for the public to read? The research I conducted ahead of this meeting consisted of reports nearly at the end of the recommended 10-year renewal. So this, I think, is related perhaps to the previous question about data.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's related. So hopefully you had your question answered. We just have a couple more minutes left and we have a few more questions to get through. So we'll try and get through all of them as best we can. Let's see, why not make the sidewalk wider and a shared path for pedestrians and bikes instead of taking away on-street parking? I don't want to lose the parking in front of my house on Lynn Valley Road.
So what I can say to that is that we have a limited right of way along Lynn Valley Road. And of course, we have many competing interests and limited resources in terms of, again, space and the funding. And usually arterial roads like Lynn Valley Road are mainly intended to move people, not to store, goods in the public realm.
Okay. There's another question about phase 2 and the cost of the pilot project so far. Is this something that you're able to answer that now, or is this something that you'd need to get back to people on?
Yeah, I don't think we have costs at this point.
Okay. There's a continued question about the permitting and engineering. We have your question. I just want to note that we've only got 1 minute left, so we'd be happy to reply to you after the session to answer your question. So there is another question about research that they pointed out that research was not related to the parking study. There are more data to be considered than just the parking survey. So would you like to, with our last minute, would you like to talk about the data that went into this planning in addition to parking?
Well, I think that probably leads back to a lot of our broader plans, our master plans, the various, transportation master plan, transportation plan, bike master plan, pedestrian master plan, the official community plan, that all have reams of data that are brought into those as well. So it really involves digging into those somewhat. There are links to those various plans on the project website that's here on the slide. And if you're looking for any other specific information and data, it might be best just to, because I'm not entirely sure what you're wanting or looking for. So please do email Sharzad and we can try and sort that out for you.
Okay, hopefully that answers the question about surveys and data. We had a few, so in the interest of time, I did kind of amalgamate them. If we didn't cover what you were looking for, please do email the project team at the email listed on the screen. That brings us to the end of the session. It is now 8:01. So I want to thank everyone for providing your written questions. And thank you again for taking the time to join us today. We hope the webinar was a positive experience for you. And again, if your questions were not answered during the session, please do feel free to follow up with us and enjoy the remainder of your evening. Thank you so much.